Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special broadcast on a day that saw intense firefight on the skies as well as on land along India's northern and western frontiers with Pakistan. And yes, it has again been advantaged India because the Indian armed forces have been able to strike deep into Pakistan, hitting at least 3 Pakistani air bases, those of Noor Khan, Murid and Rahim Yar Khan, and successfully neutralizing weaponized Pakistani drones, including the Baika Iha-3 kamikaze drones, besides responding with force to high-caliber Pakistani artillery fire along the line of control. And yes, India also confirmed using air-to-surface missiles to hit several of the targets in Pakistan. To discuss the situation and present a broad picture of how things could look like in the days ahead, I am joined by a very distinguished panel today. Let me tell you, viewers, I have the deepest respect for all my 4 esteemed guests on the show: Admiral Arun Prakash, former Chief of Naval Staff and former Chairman, Chiefs of Staff. I had the huge privilege of working with you, sir, at the National Security Advisory Board. Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, Distinguished Fellow at the Gateway House, Lieutenant General Arvinder Lamba, former Vice Chief of Army Staff, and Lieutenant General Rana Pratap Kalita, until recently the General Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Army's Eastern Command. Gentlemen, welcome to this program. General Kalita will be joining me soon at the studios in Guwahati. Now, you see, let me first go to Admiral Arun Prakash. So you see, the whole situation now is we are looking at 3 broad components to the ongoing war-like situation. 3 broad components. One component is that we are witnessing is, of course, obviously the military component. The second is the diplomatic, and the third is the political component. Now, if you look at the military component first, that is now, we have been seeing firefights, we have been seeing the original escalation, as the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said 2 days ago, was on April 22nd when the Pakistan terrorists, backed by the Pakistani state, killed 26 innocent civilians. That was the original escalation, and whatever followed from the Indian side is only as a response to that. Now Pakistan is clearly escalating. We have seen in the last 2 days about 400 to 700 drones being sent in. It has been effectively neutralized to a great extent, but India has an advantage because it has been able to almost disarm Pakistani skies, because we have hit some of their radar installations, we have hit their air control and early warning systems, we have also hit their air defense systems. How do you read the situation, Admiral? And where do we stand vis-a-vis this conflict that we are seeing now?
First of all, Wasbir, thank you very much for inviting me.
My pleasure, sir.
The situation is very complex, and information is being tightly controlled. So whatever we know is from the briefings which are held by the MEA, MOD, etc., or from channels like yours. But from the media, it's quite clear that India was responding to the brutal and massacre of innocent tourists in Pahalgam. It was a response, and it was a message to Pakistan that enough is enough, and it's time you stopped. This cross-border terrorism has been going on for many decades now, and India's patience has been stretched beyond limits. So this was a clear message to Pakistan that we will now no longer tolerate it, and we went across and hit 9 of their terror camps or terror training organizations. Now, whatever has happened after that is escalation on the part of Pakistan. Pakistan could have accepted this message and done something about cross-border terrorism, but they've decided to respond. And thus, we have now entered what is commonly known as the escalatory ladder. In fact, it's quite bizarre now. We are into the 4th day of exchange of fire at various levels. If you go back to 1971, Pakistan had carried out a preemptive attack on 11 of India's airfields, and within hours we were considered at war with each other. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had said the country is at war. But now for 4 days we've been seeing action and reaction kinetic strikes on both sides, but still we don't know what is the actual situation on the ground. The difference this time is, as compared to 1971, that the international boundary has not been crossed physically. Whatever attacks, to the best of my knowledge, have been through via air-launched weapons, guided weapons, fired or launched from our side of the international border or the line of control. Similarly, I think Pakistan has also been undertaking similar attacks. And the other, of course, what has actually crossed the boundaries is the drones or the unmanned aerial vehicles. So this is the state of affairs now. At some point of time, this escalation will have to be stopped. Otherwise, it could very well go out of control. Now, under what conditions, when will it stop, etc., is something that we can discuss. This depends a lot on the psychology, the planning on both sides, and the political will that is behind these actions.
Let me throw that to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia when the Admiral said that this escalation has to stop at some point in time. Ambassador Bhatia, this morning, today, in the last 12 to 18 hours, we have seen a lot of contacts. First, it was the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, speaking to the External Affairs Minister. He has also speaking to two people in Pakistan. One, of course, is the Army Chief Asim Munir and their Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. Then we saw a statement from the Chinese calling for de-escalation, and then of course it is the Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister escalating the situation. I'm going to you. I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire, said US President Donald Trump. This is Reuters has reported. This is a big breaking story at this point. The US President Donald Trump has said and just announced that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. This is what Donald Trump has said, and this is according to Reuters. So this is the big breaking story we are breaking at this time. It is 5:37 in the evening on the 10th of May. The American president has said that India and Pakistan have agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire, says US President Donald Trump. Let me go. I was talking to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. Ambassador Bhatia, let's go back to the panel. Ambassador Bhatia, how do you respond? What do you think of this?
I thank you very much. I think Admiral Sahab wanted to say something in case, so yes. I can wait.
Okay, Admiral Arun Prakasa, your first comments on this report coming in.
Just a tongue-in-cheek remark that much of what President Trump has been saying so far has not come true. So I think we should wait for confirmation from our own Ministry of External Affairs and MOD. Over to you, Ambassador.
Absolutely. I take your point. Let me throw this to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. Trump has said that India, Pakistan has agreed for a ceasefire, but we have not heard from our government yet.
Right. Thank you very much. Wasbir, you were absolutely right in delineating right in the beginning that those three dimensions, military, diplomatic, and political, would be a very good way to understand this ongoing and evolving conflict. Since there is no formal declaration of war, as Admiral Sahib pointed out, it probably would be best described as the ongoing conflict. We all know that this is a new kind of conflict in which soldiers, tanks, armored vehicles, and ships and submarines have not crossed the international border, and yet the two countries are engaged in combat. Confining myself to the diplomatic side, I would like first of all to say that war and diplomacy go hand in hand. When diplomacy ends, war begins. And when war ends, diplomacy resumes its work. So soldiers and diplomats are intertwined in their professions. Now here we are talking about the India-Pakistan conflict, and we are very clear that this has to be seen not just in the South Asian context, but in the larger global geopolitical context. I think, first of all, it is a battle for the hearts and minds of the world. India has been far ahead of Pakistan in that regard. India's narrative making and outreach to the global community has been phenomenal. And this has been seen by the speeches at the political level and by a very high level of professionalism shown in the briefings that are being organized by the government. I think the central point, as Admiral Prakash pointed out, this conflict, at the heart of this conflict is the Pahalgam massacre. That was the initiatory thing, and India has responded and reacted to it. And yet, India made it very clear that it would not like to escalate the situation. It is giving at every step the opportunity to Pakistan to stop. And this is the message India is conveying to its partners, its interlocutors, etc.
Absolutely.
My last point, since you referred to Saudi Arabia, China, US, and maybe a few other countries reacting on a kind of a daily basis, it is true. We all know that there are 3 or 4 countries which have the capability to talk to both sides and influence them into some kind of disengagement. The list is headed by the US. Certainly Saudi Arabia and UAE count there as well. To some extent, perhaps Russia and China as well. But finally, the American response has been complex so far.
Right.
Until just yesterday, Vice President Vance was reportedly saying that it is not America's business
Absolutely.
to stop this war.
Absolutely. Now, these are exclusive reactions on Northeast Live. First, we got the reaction from Admiral Arun Prakash, a little bit of taking it with a pinch of salt. Yes, that was a tweet put out by Donald Trump, the US president. We are yet to get a response from our government. We don't know what the Pakistanis have to say on this yet. We are getting this response from Ambassador Bhatia. I'm going to you, General Lamba, but before that, the President Trump in his tweet started by saying that after a long night of talks by the United States, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to immediate cessation of hostilities or an immediate ceasefire. And the operative part in the President Trump's tweet is that after a long night of discussions, long night of talks by the United States, ... the 2 nations, etc. Now, that's what the United States is claiming. Now, General Lamba, how, as a soldier, how do you look at this? Because both are nuclear states, and the escalation was too much. The hierarchy in Pakistan is somewhat ambiguous. The army doesn't really take full orders from the civilian government, so on and so forth. And it was looking really bad in the last 2 to 3 days.
Thank you, Wasbir. In the backdrop of the comments that have come on so far, President Trump's comment and tweet are an entity by themselves and should be handled separately, because the situation on the border and situation between the 2 sides will not simply switch off and on based on these tweets. There is a huge process of escalation that is already underway. It isn't likely to stop for a couple of hours till both the sides have actually understood the situation, understood the implication of this tweet, if at all it comes through the 2 governments. Second is, we have to understand that the 2 armies have been at virtual war over the last decade or more. And I think whether it was Pulwama and Balakot and later instances, if you follow the kinds of terror acts done by Pakistan, the Indian army has always been ready on the edge to actually respond very strongly to what they have been doing. I think Pahalgam gave them an opportunity, and we struck these terror camps. The most important thing is today the Modi government's declaration that an act of terror will be considered an act of war. This is at about 4 o'clock in the evening, and I think it makes a huge sense and an impelling factor for Pakistan to understand. And I think this is a kind of a conditionality that if there be any de-escalation, it has to be understood that any further acts of terror will be acts of war. The last point, a quick mention on the nuclear aspect. We understand that Pakistan has done a lot of saber rattling on nuclear doctrines. It has the first use doctrine, and we, in several scenarios, have virtually wargamed it and seen that while it has the first use option, India has the NFU option, no first use option, but it's specific and categoric to say it will be an all-out response to Pakistan's initiation.
Right.
And I think that's been a huge deterrent.
Right.
The space between is very limited. One strike by Pakistan would get an all-out response.
Right.
So I think nuclear remains in the background, not even as a deterrent today, because it's been called out too often.
Absolutely, General. Let me go back to Admiral Arun Prakash. Admiral, today, there has been a lot of policy thinking in the last 2 days. There has been fast forwarding of plans, etc. Now, today, after a meeting between the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, the Chiefs of Staffs, and yesterday night, the External Affairs Minister also made NSA, of course, so on and so forth. Now, an announcement has come today from sources close to the government that India has decided that henceforth, any acts of terror within the country will be considered as an act of war. There is no need to declare war. We can immediately respond the way we feel like. So that's a policy shift. So what do you make of it? What do you think?
Well, I'm glad to hear this because this is something that should have happened about 30 to 40 years ago.
Yes.
Any action anything that takes place in a foreign country like Pakistan, they recruit people, they train them, they arm them, and under cover of the Pakistan army, they are infiltrated across the border, clearly demarcated international border or line of control into India. Now that by any definition is an act of aggression. It is our fault that we started calling it cross-border terrorism and trying to treat it such. So it was aggression, it was an act of war, and I'm glad that now it's been treated as so. In fact, in 2016, when the surgical strike was carried out, and then 2019, when the airstrike was conducted on Balakot, it was meant to make the same statement that your acts of terrorism are going to be considered as acts of aggression. The other issue here is that we are very reluctant to issue doctrines, but most major powers in the world have issued national security doctrines, and those doctrines clearly state what are their red lines and tell their adversaries and their friends that look, these are the red lines which must not be crossed, otherwise these are the actions that will happen. We have failed to do that, and that has encouraged Pakistan to take liberties with us. There should be a doctrine which should be followed by a national security strategy, something again that we've just failed to do in all these years.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, there is a confirmation coming from Pakistan, the breaking news. Pakistan Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has come up with a tweet. He has sent out a post. He's saying that Pakistan and India have agreed to a ceasefire. So Marco Rubio has tweeted, but the biggest confirmation is coming from one of the two states in the conflict, that is Pakistan. We first heard from President Trump, who put out this tweet saying that after a long night of talks by the United States, the two nations have agreed to a ceasefire. That's what President Trump said. And now we have got a post by the Pakistani foreign minister saying that India and Pakistan and India, he says, have agreed to a truce. Now, we had that scheduled press briefing by the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Defense. It was originally slated at 5:30, but for obvious reasons, it has not yet taken place now. It may happen anytime, and in Indian response, we are going to get in about half an hour to 1 hour from now. That's what is my guess at this point in time. Admiral, I'll go back to, let me take this to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. Ambassador, Pakistan has come up with a tweet. America says that America says that for 48 hours they were engaged in talks with both India and Pakistan. Of course, we know Marco Rubio had spoken to the External Affairs Minister twice in the last 48 hours, and during the last 24 hours he has spoken once again to External Affairs Minister. He has spoken to the Pakistan Foreign Minister and the Pakistan Army Chief as well.
Right. So this is an interesting turn, and it goes to your decision to have this conversation at a very timely moment.
Absolutely.
That this kind of messages are coming in. Now you have to appreciate that three of us, although I don't speak for the trio, are former officials of the government. We have to wait until the official statement by the government of India is made before our ability to comment on the authenticity of this news about the ceasefire. But assuming that things are heading in that direction, I would like to point out that at every step after the initial strike by India, the Indian authorities have been conveying to Pakistan and to the world that in a way our mission is complete, and if you do not escalate, obviously we shall not escalate. So let us be very clear. I think the thrust of American diplomacy very much has been on Pakistani leadership. You have yourself said that the American government has been talking to not just one, but multiple actors in Pakistan, which shows that the pressure is on Islamabad and on Rawalpindi. India never has had any intention to escalate this into a bigger, wider conflict, because right on day one, the message about justice for Pahalgam had been delivered. So let us wait and see what the government reacts. We will have to find out what the terms and conditions of this ceasefire are, what kind of assurance Pakistan would give on stopping further terrorist acts against India. And then I think we will be in a very good position to analyze and interpret these developments, Wasbir.
Right. Let me read out, that is the tweet on the screen. Let's put the tweet on the screen by the Pakistan Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. Ishaq Dar has tweeted exactly 15 minutes ago. He said that Pakistan and India have agreed to a ceasefire with immediate effect. Pakistan has always strived for peace and security in the region without compromising on its sovereignty and territorial integrity, unquote. That is what Pakistan Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has written. Now, Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, has also tweeted a few minutes ago, almost around the same time as the President Trump, and Marco Rubio, who is the man actually who was in talks, telephone talks with the two countries. He says that over the past 48 hours, Vice President Vance and I have engaged with senior Indian and Pakistani officials, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Sabah Sharif, External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, Chief of Army Staff Asim Munir, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Asim Malik. Talking about the National Security Advisor in Pakistan, I am pleased to announce that governments of India and Pakistan have agreed to an immediate ceasefire and to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site. Now, the big question is, I'm coming to you, General Admiral Arun Prakash. If this claim is true that two countries will talk at a neutral site, if this American claim, this tweet at the highest level has put out this tweet, this Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is speaking on behalf of the US Vice President as well. He said that India and Pakistan has agreed to a ceasefire and agreed to talk on the broad issues at a neutral site. Now, you have seen talks in the past, isn't it? In the past, before Atal Bihari Vajpayee and so on and so forth. So what could happen, and with India's latest strategy, latest policy shift, that any act of terror within the country from henceforth will be considered as an act of war? What is there to talk?
Well, first of all, India has always been very clear that any act of terror against India will be considered as an act of war. What is there to talk? Well, first of all, India has always been very clear that any act of terror against India will be considered as an act of war. What is there to talk? whatever was happening for the last 4 days was unsustainable. I mean, if things had continued to go the way they were, we would have reached a point of no return where two nuclear powers are facing each other and continuing hostilities with each other. Now, the irony here is that India has been saying all along that there will be no talks between India and Pakistan until Pakistan commits to no terrorism. Terrorism and talks don't go together. We have a distinguished diplomat here. He will probably elucidate on this little further. But whatever I've been reading in the last couple of days, Mr. Sabharwal, our High Commissioner to Pakistan, has written a couple of editorials in which it's quite depressing to read. He's saying that there is no space left for diplomacy. And the only thing we should look at is deterrence and coercion. Now, that's very disheartening because two neighbors cannot live forever in enmity and hostility. So talks have to be there. Now, whether a third party is getting involved and India is going to accept it or not, but I think this is a welcome step that India and Pakistan are going to talk to each other instead of fighting with each other. That's my instant reaction. This is not the end of anything, because it could, if there's another terrorist attack, as India has already declared, we will respond in a very solid manner. So I think talking is something very welcome. We should start the talks and then perhaps we can see how it goes. In the meantime, a ceasefire is another welcome development that so far, whatever has happened, we'll put a stop to it and get around to the negotiating table.
Absolutely. Right. Now, I think we are cutting live to the Foreign Secretary. Vikram Misri is speaking there. Let's go live to our Foreign Secretary. Listen to him.
General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
We missed that a little bit. We okay. I think he announced. He didn't say much. Let's figure out what happened. Vikram Misri there. Brief statement which we couldn't hear, and then he went out. Let's just give me a moment to figure out what has happened. Okay, we'll come back to that. Vikram Misri made a brief appearance and the audio was not clear. Then I saw him walking out of that press conference podium. Anyway, so we will see what happens. Government press briefing on India-Pakistan conflict will happen only later. That's what I am gathering right now. Okay. Okay, Vikram Misri has confirmed that beginning 5 p.m. today, ceasefire between India and Pakistan will begin. So it has begun. So it has already. So ceasefire has come into effect. That is what our country's, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri had said. And he did not elaborate anything at all. Government announces ceasefire from 5 p.m. today. So ceasefire has begun. That is what is the big breaking story at this point. We want that on the screen. MEA has announced ceasefire, that there has been a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Now it is confirmed. Okay. We'll go back to that. Vikram Misri has come back. We'll go back to that. Let's have the audio very quickly.
India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land and in the air and sea with effect from 1700 hours Indian Standard Time today. Instructions have been given on both sides to give effect to this understanding. The Directors General of Military Operations will talk again on the 12th of May at 1200 hours. Thank you.
Okay, now that there is the confirmation. Vikram Mistry it was a very, very crisp statement by Foreign Secretary. He said all operations, military operations on land, air and sea has ceased to be. There is no operation from 5 p.m. today. It has stopped. There has been a ceasefire. Instructions have been given to both sides. And he said that the Director General of Military Operations of both sides, India and Pakistan, will speak on the subject on the 12th of May. So there will be nothing much happening till the 12th of May. Ceasefire has come into effect. That is the big story. Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, your comments now that we have got this confirmation from India, confirmation from Pakistan, and confirmation from the supposed mediator, that is the United States.
I have 2 or 3 key points to say in response to your question. Clearly, now that it has been confirmed by New Delhi that ceasefire has gone into operation, it is a development that should be welcomed by all persons of reason, because it's rare for 2 neighbors having nuclear weapons to be engaged in the kind of combat that we have been engaged for the past several days. It was very much walking on a very risky path. And it was clear that the longer we shall travel on that path, the more difficult it would be for us to revert back to normalcy and security. My second point is that celebrations should be held back. We should be very realistic. We should appreciate that clearly, as a result of sustained American pressure, Islamabad seems to have accepted the idea that there is no need for further escalation by them. It does create an atmosphere suitable for some kind of a dialogue at some place. We will have to see as to where that takes us. And our third point is clearly this announcement shows that diplomacy will find more room, more space once again. It will have to be decided as to what would be the purpose and mission of that dialogue. In many ways, this whole present situation where dialogue was completely interrupted between the 2 governments was regrettable, but it was done entirely in the light of the fact that Pakistan simply would not stop at perpetuating terrorism and terrorist acts on the Indian soil. So, yes, it is a welcome development, but we should stay on our guard.
Right.
We should remain cautious.
Okay, let me go to let me go to General Lamba. General Lamba, what lessons have we learned in the last 4 days? The world has seen what India could do without crossing the line of control. India's firepower has been demonstrated. We had the S-400 Sudarsan Chakras that could effectively contain about 600 to 700 drones and missiles sent from the Pakistani side. And the Pakistanis had these Chinese air defense systems which were neutralized India managed to neutralize it fairly early in this conflict, during the early days, that is on the first or second day itself. Now, a lot of things have been tested for the first time. We have tested really Akash missiles turned out to be quite effective. That is one. 2, our S-400 that was procured by Prime Minister Modi in 2018 at a whopping $5.43 billion. That was a huge deal. America at that point of time threatened sanctions against India, that if you procure this weapon, we will impose sanctions. But we were proved right, and that was what saved us to a great extent. So what do you make of the last 4 days of battle, if I may use the word?
Wasbir, I'll pick up one point of the last conversation of the Foreign Secretary, Mr. mystery, and that was about the DGMO to ensure that whenever, whatever happens till the 12th of May, they would review the situation. Now, I want to explain, this is the process of the hotline being used between the DGMOs of both armies. And since this was functioning as part of my system, it's been actually active throughout these 3-4 days, except that it wasn't meeting anywhere. It wasn't achieving any aim. But this is the process where, when the diplomatic negotiations come through, the military takes over to ensure the process of de-escalation. And the DGMOs are there responsible to ensure no movement or indications of continuing violation of the peace that has been declared should happen. So that's the big role, and that when he said the DGMOs were now implemented. One more point before I come to the lessons which have come out. This is a peace that's come out fairly early, good for both sides. But I only want to caution that we have been through it for decades. We have a strategy, a mentally capable response system, but we not ever formalize what came out at 4 p.m. from the Modi government's announcement, which I quoted in my first answer, that every act of terror will be considered an act of war. I think we need to insert these conditionalities in any agreement that we sign consequent to this. So coming to peace is one, but the more delicate portion and the sensitive part is ensuring this does not recur. And to prevent this recurrence, we must put it down and document these arrangements. I can go back to 1971, where the prisoners were caught. I was in the war as a second lieutenant. The prisoners who got caught 95,000 and given back. So I think we need to be resolved that this would not happen. And lastly, 3 quick lessons that have come out. First, that a war can escalate without crossing a border. 2, terrorism can be dealt with from within your own border if there is political will and the army capability. And third, that the systems, the defense systems deployed on the other side, some way or the other come under test. And we've seen really that some systems, except your own, where you continue a huge process of evaluation, testing, and then induction, 90% of them now Atmanirbhar, through Atmanirbharta. The lesson is, we've seen the Chinese equipment and its performance, to say the least, and we've seen the robust status of the military equipment that we have on our own side.
Very well said. Very well said, General. We'll elaborate on this. Extremely well said, that if you can fight battles from within your own country, battles can be escalated from within your own country, terrorists can be tackled from within your own country, and if there is a political will, everything can be tackled. Now, let me come to Admiral Arun Prakash. Following in the last 20 minutes to half an hour, there are news trickling in that Pakistan had formally requested India for a ceasefire, and the Indian government's policy shift that was announced, that any act of terror will be considered as an act of war. That India said that we will agree to the ceasefire provided you accept the fact that any act of terror henceforth will be regarded as an act of war. So these are news flowing thick and fast in the last half an hour, Admiral.
No, I think that is the key to this whole situation, that India's action post Pahalgam was meant to send 2 messages. One was retribution or revenge for public consumption, for political pressures and so on. But the more important message was of deterrence. That message was to Pakistan Army, the ISI or whatever, which is known as the Pakistani deep state, which actually runs Pakistan's domestic and foreign policies. It's not the politicians who do that. So that was the message to them, that look, so far and no more. And it was, Indian planners must have hoped that that message will go across and be accepted. But then they, for their own reasons, for public prestige and so on, they decided to retaliate. Then, as we saw, we stepped on the escalation ladder, and things were likely to go out of control. But India did a very wise and mature thing by making it quite clear that we will only stop this hostilities once you accept this proposition that every act of terrorism will henceforth be considered an act of war and will be responded to accordingly. So I think that is the key to this whole situation. For the time being, things have stopped, but we have to wait and see. Will the Pakistan army is becoming increasingly unpopular with the Pakistani public?
Absolutely.
So any war or any hostilities are a very convenient escape route for the Pakistani army chief. So we have to wait and see whether they will continue on the path of cross-border terrorism, or will they accept this? I mean, there's lots going to happen from now onwards. Negotiations. I mean, this is now we are in the hands of our diplomats to see how they manage to put across our requirements and make Pakistan agree.
That brings me to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. Ambassador Bhatia, reports are coming in now. We are getting reports that it was around 3:15 to 3:30 that Pakistanis have called Indian authorities via the United States that we request for put up a formal request for a ceasefire, and India said that henceforth we will agree to a ceasefire provided you agree that any act of terror in the future will be regarded as an act of war. I will take your response on that, but give me 10 seconds for a quick commercial break. Yes, Ambassador Bhatia, that Pakistanis are supposed to have called up the Indian authorities around 3:30 via the Americans, requested for a ceasefire. India is supposed to have said that we are okay, provided you agree that henceforth any act of terror will be considered as an act of war.
What you have left unsaid is the Pakistani response. You seem to imply that Pakistanis accepted the Indian condition. I would prefer not to comment on that because that would be very speculative. But let me pinpoint 2 or 3 important facets of this episode. This is quite remarkable that this is happening live as we discuss these things.
Yes.
The first point is that it does show the centrality of American diplomacy in this region, particularly because they've had a long history of close relations with Islamabad. And certainly, US is an important strategic partner for India. The last few days, clearly Washington was working on 2 channels. On the public channel, essentially saying that, our hands are full, we are going through a change. It's not our business to go around resolving other people's conflict, etc. But at the same time, we knew that American officials were in close touch with both sides. So clearly, that seems to have worked. The second point is very significant to remember. Just 2 days back, the IMF meeting took place. And there, the question was whether to allow some loan to Pakistan, a proposal on which India abstained. People at that time raised the question as to why India did not object to it or oppose it. And it was pointed out that IMF rules do not permit it. So clearly, when the loan was sanctioned, it is quite possible that at that very moment, some give by Pakistan may have been wrested by the US. And the third point is, this is very significant, and I think our brothers from military can confirm to this. I think in the last 4 days, it was very clear to Pakistan that its military woes, its military vulnerability, its economic weakness were coming into full exposure to the entire world.
Yes.
Their drones were being neutralized so effectively in this new phase of war. This must have obviously created a different kind of motivation there. So while I'm not able to answer your initial question, I wanted to bring these three
Right.
aspects to the fore,
Right.
so that we are clear it's a very complex
Absolutely.
matter and evolving matter.
Right. Now, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has also put out a post. He has said India has maintained a firm stand. He said India has maintained a firm stand. There has been an agreement on stoppage of military action and firing. And he said that India will be firm on terrorism. These are the three main points in that post on X by External Affairs Minister. Let's put out that tweet by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Now, we are hearing that at this point, even as we speak, NSA Ajit Doval is at the residence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is the first meeting, going to be the first meeting between the NSA and the Prime Minister after the ceasefire has come into place. Now, the External Affairs Minister has tweeted saying India has maintained a firm stand, agreement on stoppage of military action and firing, and India is going to be firm on terrorism. We'll put out that tweet on the screens by External Affairs Minister, but this is the main content of the tweet. That is the tweet by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. So developments are playing thick and fast. Developments are going on thick and fast at this point in time. And as I said, NSA Ajit Doval is already at the residence of the Prime Minister. This is going to be his first meeting with the Prime Minister after the ceasefire has come into effect. Now let me go to, before coming to you, General, let me go once again to Admiral Arun Prakash. Admiral Sir, basically, in the last three to 4 days, as the ambassador was saying, Pakistan was faced with multiple, it was caught in a pincer, actually. On one side, they were engaging with the Indians at their own home front. The Baloch rebels were stepping up or scaling up their insurgency. And yesterday, suddenly, in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Tehrik-e-Taliban ambushed and killed 20 of their soldiers. And we know their economy is in shambles, and there's a question about the leadership both in the army as well as the political leadership. There has been people lawmakers are talking in parliament, described their prime minister as a coward. So all these things, do you think would have actually made Pakistan request India for a ceasefire via the United States?
Well, Pakistan is a singularly unfortunate country in the sense that we are two neighbors, and the contrast is huge. India is a status quo country which is preoccupied with its own developmental issues, its economy, growing economy, and its status in the world. Whereas Pakistan seems to be continuously distracting itself by hanging on and to this issue of Kashmir. And the army chief made a very immature, delivered a very immature talk the other day, where he said that Kashmir happens to be Pakistan's jugular vein. Now, this whole situation has arisen because Pakistan has allowed its army to take charge of domestic and foreign affairs, etc. Pakistan army runs the country, and the army has a vested interest in retaining the focus on itself, and the focus will remain on the army as long as there is instability between India and Pakistan. So it is the Pakistan army which is at the root of all the bilateral troubles that we are facing. And it is in the Pakistan army's interest to keep this cross-border terrorism issue going. In fact, the survival of the Chief of Army Staff possibly depends on this. Now, it is obviously the intolerable economic pressure that Pakistan is feeling. It's been said that they are taking loans only to pay off other loans. I mean, China is supporting them in a great measure, but then China will also extract the price. So I think it is their intolerable economic situation, their internal situation. The Baloch situation is going out of hand. They've got now the Pakistan army has to face two fronts, both in the east and the west. And I think all these issues combined have served to overcome General Munir's, selfish interests, etc., for which he was possibly pursuing this. I mean, they were making blood-curdling announcements, their public relations people, etc. So it is quite a surprise that within hours of all those announcements, they have agreed to a ceasefire, or they've asked for this ceasefire.
Absolutely.
So I think the reasons are quite obvious.
Yeah, I mean, this decision to put up a formal request to India for a ceasefire was taken at the Central Command Authority meeting that took place in Islamabad this afternoon. In fact, that was what we had also reported at that time. It was about 3 to 4 hours from now, maybe 5 hours. If my memory, and it was taken because this is the body, the Central Command Authority. You'll be knowing better that it takes the decisions even on the nukes. Now let me go to General Lamba. General, we are getting reports that it was exactly at 3:35 p.m. Indian Standard Time that the Pakistani DGMO called his Indian counterpart and proposed a ceasefire. We are getting a lot of details on what's going on because I'm hearing a lot of things, from my news desk saying that it was at 3:35 p.m. sharp that the Pakistani DGMO called his Indian counterpart and proposed a ceasefire. And some of the reasons for that, well, perhaps, do you think, is the desperation within Pakistan battling many fronts? General, you have to switch on your mic. Switch on.
Sorry for that.
Yes.
So two things have happened simultaneously, as they should have. While the proposition from the army chief went out to India through the DGMOs, simultaneously the Pak High Command did approach, the US authorities to help dissipate the situation. So I think these would have happened simultaneously because, as you rightly said, the decision and the statement from Mr. Mistry, the Foreign Secretary, has just come out a little while ago when we started this conversation. So to cover that gap and to ensure that no further deterioration or escalation takes place, it's a process. The first line of contact is the DGMOs, like I explained briefly, and there is enough respect that's been given over the years to say that any any statement or request made on this is honored by both the chiefs and the countries. Second, there is a very firm message in the foreign minister, what he's given for it, this message that India stands firm and India stands firm of terror. I think these are two statements which cannot be underplayed. The message is to the political leadership and the message is to the military leadership that India is firm and India is firm in its stand. I think these two complement each other, that while a political and a diplomatic resolution is being worked out, the military also understand there is a desire, and this could hasten the process of de-escalation. One more point that I want to make is, as far as the command authority is concerned, which is headed almost by the chief himself and also by the DGISI, who happens to be the NSA today, the nukes would have been discussed. But I think for the reasons I put across, the limitations in usage of this instrument of war are very limited. There is no space and would have been simply put aside in finally deciding that this war must stop.
Right.
Balochistan was Balochistan was a serious concern with Pakistan, which compelled them to agree to pull themselves out of this war. And if we saw what was happening today in the afternoon, they showed live the videos of the Baluchis striking Pakistan forces in various areas of Balochistan, causing havoc on them. Lastly, I think we need to understand that a political message in the case of Pakistan is essentially to the political leadership and as much to the military leadership, because the leadership is more with the military than with the political leadership. And this is where this kind of a messaging and decision-making would work to de-escalate the situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me go to Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. Ambassador, Pakistan has also not got the desired support from even its close allies. For example, China. The first response that China did was that, after India targeted these 9 terror sites, was that we regret the fact that India has intruded inside Pakistan and hit in Pakistani territory. As you said, in diplomatic language, regret is a very mild word. Pakistanis would have liked to hear something more stronger against India. That was the first response by the Chinese. Yesterday, when the Chinese Foreign Ministry responded, they said that, okay, we want a de-escalation, we want calm, we want restraint, we want peace. So China is one of the closest allies of Pakistan, who have been supplying all kinds of military hardware, and they would have perhaps got that kind of a message. Even the Arab countries, even the Muslim world, unlike in the past, did not come up with that solid support, because the Saudi Arabian foreign minister and the Iranian, one of the top leaders, were in India when the conflict started 3 to 4 days ago. Ambassador.
Well, that is one way to look at this thing after this announcement of ceasefire is known. But when we began our conversation, frankly, the situation looked a bit differently. It seemed to us that on the diplomatic front, Pakistan was not doing all that badly. For example, OIC had issued a very strong statement favoring Pakistan. There were reports that Turkey was helping Pakistan. It was very clear that Pakistan was fighting India while using the Chinese weapons and Chinese telecommunication system and other technologies. Most importantly, the countries in the neighborhood were visiting them. Iranian foreign minister was there as well. And above all, no country was openly choosing India over Pakistan or Pakistan over India. So it was that kind of situation until, say, 5 o'clock when we began, 5:30 when we began this program. So my deduction, therefore, is that the change in Pakistan's attitude obviously has been triggered largely by internal political and economic and military factors. This is that combination which is driving Pakistan. At the same time, as we said earlier, it's going to be a long road for mutual understanding and accommodation. But this time it seems to me that, India would be in a very good position, because we have taken a whole series of steps before, going into Pakistan with our new weapons. We may not be in a hurry to undo those measures. And also, I think it's very important to note that India-Pakistan agenda is so vast and so big, and the trust deficit is so huge, that we should not create any impression in the minds of the viewer that now that ceasefire has taken place, everything like a magic band would change and these would become, friends. India-Pakistan story will continue. We are relieved that they will not be speaking to each other through missiles and drones, that they would be speaking through intermediaries or through their diplomats. But that is going to be a long and arduous conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gentlemen, it is not always that I get a panel like I have today. The esteemed panelists that I'm really lucky today. I will leave you in just about half an hour, not more than that. Let me go to Admiral Arun Prakash. Admiral, you have written this very nice article, very interesting, a measured response in the initial response to India, India's initial response after Pahalgam, where you said that, revenge, as the old French this says goes, is a dish best served cold. That's what you picked up. Is revenge is a dish best served cold. Now do you think we have taken revenge at the end of the day? Finally. You have to put your mic. Let's listen to Omar Abdullah. Let's listen to Omar Abdullah, the Chief Minister of J&K. Sorry, Admiral.
उन्हें अभी हमें मुआवजा देना होगा, कॉम्पनसेशन देना होगा, और जैसे मैंने अभी कहा, जहाँ जहाँ प्रॉपर्टी का नुकसान हुआ है वहाँ पे भी. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll put that full bite. We'll play that full bite soon. Yes, Admiral, do you think we have finally had our sweet revenge on Pakistan and their terror friends?
So as I said earlier, and as I wrote in that article, revenge is only to assuage public opinion and ward off political pressure. The actual message is of deterrence, which has happened now. You know, the announcement that you told us that any act of terrorism will be taken as an act of war. So I think that is the actual thing, that we have to convey this message to the people who control Pakistan, which is the Pakistan army, that any act of terrorism will be considered an act of war, and we will respond accordingly. So revenge is only a partial kind of issue. Now, going back to what the ambassador just said, that just an hour ago things were looking quite different. In fact, President Trump had said not once but twice that this is their own affair and let them sort it out. It's been going on for 1500 years or something like that. So things were not looking all that bright. But I think what has really moved the major world powers is the fact that this is a set of hostilities ongoing between two nuclear armed powers, and they are on an escalatory ladder whose unthinkable, but the ultimate end is a nuclear detonation. That is what worries the world powers, because a nuclear exchange on the subcontinent will not be confined to the subcontinent. It'll have worldwide implications. So that is what really worries the Western power, the people who matter. So I feel that possibly they saw this going out of hand. 4 days had gone past. You know, both countries were attacking each other's military facilities, and the whole situation could have gone out of hand. So they've exercised some really strong arm twisting tactics and got Pakistan to agree to this. So I think it is a nuclear threshold which has actually worked to stop this set of hostilities.
Nuclear threshold must have worked to end this set of hostilities. I'm coming to you, Ambassador and General Lamba, but give me a few moments for another quick break.
The floor to
Bhatia, but let's listen to what Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said while announcing the ceasefire between on the conflict. Let's listen to Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri once again.
Director General of Military Operations of Pakistan called the Director General of Military Operations of India at 15:35 hours earlier this afternoon. It was agreed between them that both sides would stop.
Defense Ministry briefing. This is the MOD briefing. Let's cut to that. Yes.
Details of these have been shared with you over the past few days through our various press briefings. What has also happened is that there is a significant amount of misinformation that is being undertaken from the other side. And as a professional military organization, we thought it is also our duty to dispel those misinformation aspects, as also state the facts of the case as they stand. Towards that, I will now hand over to my colleague, Colonel Qureshi.
नमस्कार। अब मैं आपको पाकिस्तान की मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के बारे में अवगत कराऊंगी। पहला, पाकिस्तान ने यह क्लेम किया कि उसने अपने JF-17 से हमारे S-400 व ब्रह्मोस मिसाइल बेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जो कि बिल्कुल गलत है। दूसरा, उसका ये भी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन था कि हमारी एयरफील्ड, जो कि सिरसा, जम्मू, पठानकोट, बठिंडा, नलिया और भुज में है, ये उसका मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन भी बहुत गलत है। तीसरा, पाकिस्तान के मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन के मुताबिक हमारे एम्युनिशन डंप्स जो चंडीगढ़ और बियास में है उसका डैमेज हुआ, यह भी बिल्कुल गलत है। हमने आपको मॉर्निंग ब्रीफिंग में बताया था विद फैक्ट्स एंड फिगर के साथ कि ये सारी चीजें बिल्कुल सही सलामत हैं। अब मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि पाकिस्तान के एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में ये बात की गई थी कि उनके सीनियर मिलिट्री ऑफिसर्स जो कि पूरी तरह से ये भ्रामक है और तथ्यों से दूर है कि पाकिस्तान की ओर से ये झूठा आरोप भी लगाया जा रहा है कि भारतीय सेना ने मस्जिदों को नुकसान पहुंचाया। मैं इससे बिल्कुल स्पष्ट करना चाहती हूं कि इंडिया इज ए सेक्युलर नेशन और हमारी सेना भारत के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज की एक बहुत प्यारी झलक है। इंडियन आर्म फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान को बहुत भारी नुकसान पहुंचाया, उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स को, चाहे वो लैंड एसेट्स हो या फिर उनके एयर एसेट्स। यही नहीं, इंडियन आर्म फोर्सेस ने पाकिस्तान की एयरफील्ड स्कर्दू, जकोबाबाद, सरगोदा और बुलारी को बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाया। इसके अलावा पाकिस्तान के एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम, रडार सिस्टम, उनको भी एयर स्पेस में अनडिनेबल किया। यह भी बताना चाहती हूँ कि लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल के पास पाकिस्तान के कमांड एंड कंट्रोल, लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस और उनके मिलिट्री इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, मिलिट्री पर्सनल का इतना भारी नुकसान हुआ कि पाकिस्तान की ऑफेंसिव और डिफेंसिव कैपेबिलिटी को नष्ट कर दिया गया। अंत में मैं फिर से ये बात दोहराना चाहूंगी, इंडियन आर्म फोर्सेस पूरी तरह से तैयार है, सतर्क है और भारत की संप्रभुता और अखंडता की रक्षा के लिए पूरी तरह से कमिटेड है। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
Okay, that was the MOD briefing. We will go back to that briefing once again.
Spreading a misinformation campaign, as we have seen for the last few days. There were attempts made to say that our S-400 at a northern base was destroyed, which was completely false, and that it was destroyed by a JF-17. It was a false information. Also, that the BrahMos installation was attacked and it was destroyed was false. The destruction of airfields at Srinagar, Jammu, Pathankot, Bhuj, Nalia, etc. was also a false claim. The forward ammunition dump at Chandigarh and Beas are also fit and fine, and we showed you these in the photographs in the morning briefing today. Also, there was a certain different way of miscampaign that Pakistan conducted by its press conferences, which was conducted in a manner which was completely misleading and devoid of facts. Pakistan has been spreading fabricated allegations that the Indian armed forces have targeted mosques. Let us make this very clear here, that India is a secular nation and the Indian armed forces are a reflection of our constitutional values. We hold every place of worship of all faiths in the highest regard. Our operations have been aimed exclusively at terrorist camps and facilities being used for anti-India activities. No religious sites, I repeat, no religious sites have been targeted by the Indian Armed Forces. Over the past few days, as we have seen, Pakistan has suffered very heavy and unsustainable losses after it has given us an unprovoked attack on our installations. It has suffered losses in both land and air. There has been an extensive damage to the crucial Pakistani air bases like Skardu, Sargoda, Jacobabad and Bholari. In addition, a loss of AD weapon system and radars made the defense of Pakistani airspace untenable. Across the line of control, extensive and precise damage to military infrastructure and command control centers and logistic installations. In addition to that, 2 military personnel had led to complete breakdown of its defensive and offensive capability and also Pakistani morale.
In conclusion, let me reiterate that whilst we will be adhering to the understanding that has been reached today, that is the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, and the Indian Air Force, we remain fully prepared and ever vigilant and committed to defending the sovereignty and integrity of the motherland. Every misadventure by Pakistan has been met with strength, and every future escalation will invite a decisive response. We remain fully operationally ready to launch whatever operations may be required in defense of the nation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, that was the MOD press briefing. Let's go back to our panelists. Let's have everybody on the screen, please. Now, the three to four main points made by the MOD's press conference. Now, they said that Pakistan suffered on land and air, 4 air bases hit, defense of Pakistan airspace made untenable as radars and air defense systems were absolutely flattened, and Pak morale was badly hit. So these are the reasons attributed by India. They have not said that these were the reasons that led to the Pakistanis calling for a ceasefire or requesting for a ceasefire, but they have pinpointed what had happened to Pakistan in the last 4 days. Pakistan suffered on land and air, 4 air bases, at least 4 air bases hit. Defense of Pakistan airspace was made untenable as radars and air defense systems were hit, and Pak morale badly hit as a result of the Indian action. Now, Admiral Arun Prakash, this is what the Indian Defense Ministry had said by way of wrapping up as to what had happened in Pakistan in the last 4 days of the Indian assault.
Well, that's all good news. So militarily, we were ahead of the game. And if we are to believe our spokesman, then obviously Pakistan was on the back foot, and they sought a ceasefire, which is all good news for us. But while on this topic, I think one must take note of the extremely intemperate and wild conduct of TV channels on both sides of the boundary. I mean, TV has such a great influence on public opinion that if they let themselves go in the way they have, they can actually be most provocative and cause great harm to national security. And as one of our leading channels, I think you need to take note of that and convey it to your colleagues in this business.
Absolutely, I take note of that, but we have been trying to be as restrained as possible, going for official confirmation of things. Thank you very much for your point in any case. Before I come to the diplomat for his wrap-up comments, let me go to you, General Lamba. These are the 4 points that the MOD spokespersons have said. As I said, you have heard that. So what are your thoughts? These are some of the reasons that had led Pakistan to request formally for a ceasefire.
I think while these 4 reasons have been spelled out by the MOD spokesman, the perspective is much larger. The kind of projection that India has done in its political resolve for the first time in this direction against terror, and the military resolve and the actions this way taken after being fully prepared equipment-wise, is the larger fear that had impelled Pakistan to rethink its ability to keep up. And I think that's where it is going to make a difference. Two, there are two major reasons. Pakistan has always had the support of the United States, and United States has shown its interest in de-escalating between both the countries. But my point is, not always is America's interest in interest of both the countries. It could be interest of one country, but it need not be interest. The timing of this could not be in the interest of both countries. So I think internally, the projection of the Indian Army has been so comprehensive, so consolidated, and so determined. The mere briefings that have come out, and I think for the first time in our 50 years of wearing this uniform, we've seen how the dissemination of political will down to the military service chiefs and the CDS, the dissemination down to the commanders, and passing the responsibility for response to the military services, is happened a different way. it shows a different attitude, shows a different delegation and confidence in the system and the country's military forces that this can be handled by them. So I think all in all, this is something that is completely missing on the other side. And if anyone were across on the Pakistan side, this correlation is psychologically very damaging to people on the side of the adversary, which has believed in terror and experienced this kind of, shall I call it, a very mature, very consolidated, yet a very restrained response with the threat of escalation anytime. So I think that's what has put Pakistan back on its foot to seek seek peace through the US.
Absolutely. Ambassador Bhatia, during the last 4 days or during the past fortnight, ever since Pahalgam and the Indian response thereafter, top leaders in Pakistan have put in a foot-in-mouth situation on a number of occasions. Their defense minister, particularly, Khwaja Asif, he said that when he was asked, why did you not engage with the drones, then he said that, oh, that would have given us our locations. Then he was asked, you said that 5 Indian planes have been shot down. What is the evidence? He said that it is all over in the social media. Then the anchor said, we are not talking about the social media. You are the defense minister. Tell us. Then he talked about the social media. Now, why was this kind of a thing, do you think, at the highest level in a war kind of a situation? And then they had to fall back on the Americans. They didn't get much of an help from the Chinese. They were in touch with the leaders in the United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia. Then they were in touch with the United States, of course. Ambassador, how do you think this had led up to this ceasefire?
Thank you very much. Since these are probably closing comments, please allow me to make 3 or 4 observations. Before I come to Pakistan, let me first highlight the role of India and the way India has reacted to Pahalgam and its aftermath. I think we can say in a reasonable manner that the world and particularly Pakistan is seeing a new India. It is more resolute, more determined, better organized, and a country that has said very clearly the red line is further terrorist act on the Indian soil. I think this is a very major lesson from Pahalgam. And now what we will have to do is our authorities and our troops will have to be ready to deliver the punch whenever there is any serious terrorist action or act against our citizens in future. The second point is that in contrast to the rising economic and military and political profile of our country, Pakistan is clearly in a very sorry state. We have gone over its economic, military, political, and organizational vulnerability. I think if we put all this together, the answer to the queries, specific queries that you have raised, in a short manner, one can say that the narrative building, narrative control, outreach and dissemination on this entire tragic drama, India has been running miles ahead of Pakistan. The third point is that if it comes out very clearly that US has delivered this ceasefire, mostly by putting the pressure on Islamabad, then this will certainly, give kudos to American diplomacy. American diplomacy does need some quick and significant victories because they are stuck on the Ukraine issue, etc. So America's profile and influence would go up. And finally, I want to say something on the television channels that might please you. I think Admiral Prakash was right about his critical comments, but there have been honorable exceptions. Some channels have been doing their work with a sense of responsibility. But this whole tendency for anchors to behave as if they are the warriors, the actual warriors, is something that we must really reflect seriously in future. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go for a very quick break and very few seconds last comments from all of you, and then we'll conclude this debate. I'll come back after 10 to 15 seconds. Thank you. Admiral, straight question. Do you think Pakistan will be able to rein in the terrorists?
That's not an easy question for me to answer. It all depends on the internal politics of Pakistan. Right now, at this moment and for the last couple of decades, it's the Pakistan army which has been in control of politics in Pakistan. They make and unmake governments. They have jailed a very popular political leader. So right now they are in the driving chair, although I think General Munir's position is not very secure. So I think a lot depends on how insecure the Pakistan army feels. So far they've been saying that Kashmir is the core issue of India-Pakistan relations. I think they need to get past that. Only then can we coexist geographically. We are two neighbors. We have to live with each other. So we need to go past that situation where they keep insisting that Kashmir is a core issue, whereas it is actually an inalienable part of India. It has been so for decades. So I think Pakistan needs to get over this paranoia of theirs. The army has to get over this psychosis. Only then will they be able to progress and develop as a nation.
Absolutely.
So it all depends on how much control the equation between the politicians and the army. The army has to be put into its place. It should be sent back to its barracks, and then we can get on with life on the subcontinent. But till that happens, then it's very difficult to predict.
Let's hope so. Happen. Let's hope for the best. General Lamba, your thoughts?
You know, as far as controlling terror is concerned, it's one perspective. But if you see the mindset of the Pakistani military, particularly after it lost East Pakistan, and then so much happened that it came down to it settled to making Kashmir its jugular vein, like it said. It is a transformation to say that we will never give up our war against India. It's creating a situation of conflict always with India. And I think till that mindset changes, and I think the more important point is in these 4 days, India's response, diplomacy, and the military actions have virtually should have convinced the military leadership of Pakistan, and to an extent the political leadership also, that such kind of just mindsets would not work anymore. There is a huge build-up by the Indian army, and I think they'll have to settle past these historical defeats and setbacks they've had.
Right. Finally, Ambassador Bhatia.
Very briefly, I think what I would like to say is that when we say the word Pakistan, in our mind space, we should be clear that there are two elements, the people and the government. Our problems continuously have been successive series of governments in Pakistan. On the other hand, Pakistani people, barring some bad elements, the terrorists, etc., they are really part and parcel of the Indian subcontinental landscape. So we will have to think in terms of understanding and friendship for the people, and resoluteness and determination in terms of dealing with the Pakistani leadership. I agree with Admiral Prakash that there could be some changes in the leadership in Pakistan, but this is not the time to speculate. I want to thank you for conceiving this program and for bringing old colleagues and friends together. And I hope your viewers enjoyed this very live and timely show.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Admiral Arun Prakash, Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, Lieutenant General Arvinder Lamba. In fact, the timing was just right. Sometimes, the timing for this show, normally no news channel does a program at 5:30 in the evening. The prime time is generally at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening. But I just decided to take a chance and it clicked. And thank you very, very much for your time. And thanks to viewers for watching the show. Good evening.